Hi, my name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording. Welcome to another video where I'm talking about the Teenage Engineering OP-1 digital audio workstation. That is this thing right here. This series of videos is geared towards beginners and people that don't have an OP-1 to sort of demystify all the functions that are going on with it and talk about some fun ways to use them. In this video, we'll be going over the tape, which is your 4-track digital tape recorder. At its most basic, it's the way that you record all of your stuff to the OP-1 to make your song, but it has a lot of tips, tricks, and other things to keep in mind. So we'll go over all those. So the tape can be accessed by hitting the little tape button right here. We're going to erase this tape by hitting Shift plus tape and 1, 2, 3, 4 to erase it. This is going to take a little second. It's going to go through and erase the whole tape and give us a blank canvas to start from. With that, our tape is erased. So let's go ahead and hit the tempo button right here. Why are you showing me that? There we go. So BPM. Now, you can actually adjust the tape speed here. You can sync the pocket operators and other things that use sync pulse. And you can choose whether or not you want to link the tape speed and BPM. And there's reasons to do that. We'll show you in a little bit. Right now, we're going to keep it in beat match mode. And we're going to keep the speed 1:1 because that is our speed. Let's go ahead and leave this at 120. I don't care. Here's your metronome. We have an effect on our tape right now. It's a good time to show you the master effects section because I'm going to count this as part of the tape. If you hit this little button right here, you have access to these 4 things. All 4 tape tracks are available here to see. You'll see VU meters moving when you have stuff recorded to it. You can change the level here if you want. Changing shift will give you pan. My workflow for the OP-1, I usually pan tracks 1 and 2 a little bit left and right, 1 left, 2 right, for the recording when I do my OP-1 videos to give the track a little bit of stereo separation. I record my drums on 4, bass on 3, and then my synths and stuff on 1 and 2. If I have a blank section of tape that doesn't have drums or bass or synths on it, I may record a different thing to that because these can be pulled off the OP-1 as 4 AIFF files that you can then bring into your DAW or whatever you want and do whatever you want with. In 2 here, we have an EQ. So I guess we probably should record something to tape so we can hear how this stuff sounds. So let's go ahead and turn that off and go to our finger sequencer. Turn off the effect for this, go to our master, and turn off the effect for that. Don't worry, we'll come back to that. Wonderful. So go back to tape. Here's the main tape interface. If you hit Shift forward and backwards, you will change bar based on your tempo. Here's your record level to tape. You can hear that I have a sequencer running, and that's why when I hold this down, I'm getting notes played back. So I can put my drums on 4 right in the middle. Here's something that it took me a while to learn when recording to the OP-1's tape, and that is, while this thing does have an internal clock, and you have a tempo set and stuff like that, and obviously the sequence is set to the tempo, if I hit record, it's really hard to get that right on beat. So I'm going to hold down record, and then I'm going to press the button for my sequence. And when I do that, it's going to start recording and start the sequence at the same time, so I'll be in time. Okay, cool. So you can see that little red bar at the bottom there. That's my recorded content. I hit Shift and back to get to the end of that 4-bar phrase. I'm going to make a loop out of this. So you can see there's a little green dot right there. That's my loop points that are sort of hiding together. I don't have loop on right now. And turned loop on, and it made a loop out of that section that we'll play back. I want it to be 2 bars, and you can see the bar checks right there because I have that beat match mode on in the tape. So you can see I have a little overhang there. I'm going to use the cut button right here to cut that. And now you can see that on the left I have a red section, and on the right I have a blue section, and the blue means that it's selected. I can use this blue knob here to rock back and forth on the tape. Now, I'm going to lift that using the lift button. The lift button does a couple things. Obviously, it just erased that piece of tape, which is what I want because I don't want that overhang. But the lift button has a couple other uses. So if I hit the drop button, which is here, I'm going to put whatever I just had in memory by lifting it down onto where the playhead is. So why is this useful? Well, because you have 4 tracks, you may end up like overdubbing over something, or, you know, maybe you just didn't get a performance right. So what I do before I record anything onto the OP-1 where there's something already recorded on the channel, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and go to an arpeggiator and make a little arpeggiator sequence. And adjust our synth, go back to the tape, select, we're going to call this our bass. So I'm going to again hold record, and I'm going to press down the key. We don't need our metronome at this point, so I can turn that down. Let's go ahead and record something on 1. And on 2. Now that trick that I showed you where if you hold down record and press a key for the sequence, and it will start when the key is pressed, the same applies to not having a sequence running. So if I wanted to start right on the beat, I could hold down record and press the chord that I want to. And this is why in a lot of the OP-1 videos, you'll see me trying to like finger a chord that has too many fingers for one hand and hold down the record button at the same time. Okay, so now we have something recorded in a loop. So I can lift any one of these sections here and paste it as many times as I want, which is useful. I don't want this, so I'll go ahead and rock back so it's blue and get rid of it. I can also lift all of this at once. So if I hold Shift, you'll see that all that's selected, and I'll hit up, and I'll hit down to paste it back, and go paste it to another section. So now I've just doubled my section. If you do not have something recorded on, like, let's say track 2, I'll show you right now. If I lift up track 2, now I have only 1, 3, and 4 recorded. But if I do that whole lifty thing, drop it again, you can see that it's pasted into track 2 even though there's nothing there. Just keep that in mind that if you're lifting all 4 sections of tape and you paste it again, you will see something in the blank track just because that's how it be. So I'm going to lift 2 again so I can show off overdubbing. Let's go to 4. Let's make a new pattern. And I'm going to do that thing where I hold record. And I've just overdubbed on that section. Now, let's say I wanted to add like a little solo or something to this. So what I'll do here is I will lift all of this and I'm going to drop it twice. Now, something to keep in mind is that for some reason, sometimes these in and out points, even though they look like they're there in the right place, might not actually be in the right place. So if my intention is to paste what I've just lifted into the next like bar sequence, the next bar space, I want to make sure that I'm actually on that little white chick that that designates that I am on a bar. So I'm going to rock forward using Shift arrow and rock back. And it's just a precaution thing because I have gotten off so much by accidentally pasting something wrong onto the tape. And then, you know, you turn on your metronome and you realize you're like just milliseconds off the beat. And while you can fix that in post, it's not great. So I have made a loop longer by pasting the section twice. Let me show you join now. So I'm going to rock over to where that edit point is between those two things, and I'm going to hit Shift and the scissor key, which is join. Now I've just joined those two things together. And the reason that you might want to do this is because maybe you want to lift a longer section that wasn't joined. You can join them together, and now I have the ability to lift and paste that whole section, which is really useful. So I've used up all my tracks here, but I still want to add a little bit more. My philosophy when making the OP-1 tracks is that I try not to overdub more than like twice onto a section that's involving synthesizer or melodic content, because I want to be able to separate these things when I get into Ableton to be able to mix the track a little bit better. But I do overdub once or twice. So I don't want to lose what I have here if I mess up this next performance. So first of all, let's go ahead and practice something. Let's just go ahead and make up something real quick. This is not going to be award-winning music here, but I just want to show you. So, all right, that's fine. So this the lift acts as an undo buffer, basically. I'm going to lift this section and paste it back down, and now I know that I have that section in memory. So if I mess this up, I can paste it again. I'll just show you, watch. Well, that was a terrible performance. You can see that the tape has designated that I recorded material up until that point. I could go join that together if I want that new take to be part of it, but it will auto-join it all once it gets through the loop point. But I didn't like that, so I'm going to hit down, and now I basically undid what I did. It's just sort of a easy way to keep yourself from going crazy, from messing up a section that you spent a long time on. So, yep, see, I messed up. Back, down. Maybe I want to keep section 2 clean, but add something to it. I can lift it like I just did, and then drop it over here as sort of a safety area so that I can come back to it as a thing if I want to. And this is basically how I construct my OP-1 tracks. I will copy things to a new section. I will add and subtract from them. I'll get rid of, like, you know, track 1 and add something completely different to it, and just sort of keep building on sections or adding and subtracting sections so that I have a sort of progression. I already showed you that you can rock back and forth like this. This will come into play later, but you can also fast forward and rewind using the arrow keys right there. We've talked about in and out points. So let's say I wanted to just like record a fill here onto like the drum track. I could set the in and out point to there and go over to my drum track, turn off any sequencer, find something that doesn't suck. So I don't want to mess up this section. So I'll cut, I'll lift, I'll drop it back down. Now I have that in my undo buffer. So I just recorded a little fill. And I'll join that to the drum track. So now that I have that whole section done. We talked about being able to move through bars by holding Shift, plus, and forward. You can also jump to the beginning of an end of the tape itself by hitting stop and forward and back. So that's going to move to the start and end points of any recorded material. Something cool that you can also do is set your loop points in and out here. And when you're in beat match mode, obviously you're looping a beat section. Now if I was to hold Shift and press an arrow, it's going to move that loop over and then start playing the next section when it gets to the end of this loop. So that's useful if you actually want to perform on the OP-1 and move through different sections of your tape. And you don't have to move just the next section. You can move like 3 down. As quick as you can press the button, you can move around on the OP-1. You can mute and solo tracks by holding them down. These represent your 4 tracks. Shift will mute. So again, performance opportunities. You can use these keys over here to perform. Tape stop, reverse, rock. And now these are assignable. So let me show you these real quick. So to show you off the M1 and M2 keys, I'm going to need to go into here and show off the master section. So we talked about the VU meters and stuff here. Shift gets you pan. Here's an EQ. So this is what the clean OP-1 output sounds like with no of the EQ on here. I can adjust and then adjust how much EQ I want. Now, why is this useful? Well, again, for performing, let's just make it really extreme. I'm going to hold down M1, and by adjusting something, see how it turned red? So I'll turn this back to clean. Now you have that as like a little performance option. And this can be applied to anything. So let's go ahead and change this to something really crazy. I'm going to hold down M2. Turn down the mix. So you know, you have a lot of performance options there. We go back to our master section and hit 4. Let's turn that off, and we're on clean EQ. 4 is a really important section. This is where you can adjust the output of your tracks here, so you can do left and right. The OP-1 drive here is some magical compression limiting thing that is just really important to how the OP-1 sounds. Let's go ahead and turn it down all the way. And I'll start turning it up, and then we'll adjust the release. You can definitely hear some compression. It's beating against itself, depending on what kind of genre you've made. Let's go ahead and turn the tape down and hear what this sounds like. Oops. So, instant synthwave, because I turned down the tape speed and it's linked to the BPM. Release is very important. A longer release is generally going to give you a cleaner thing. If you want a high drive amount, I like to leave the drive, I don't know, wherever it sounds good. To give you a sense of how it will like beat against itself. Anyways, that's the drive. What have we talked about? We've talked about recording, we've talked about overdubbing, we've talked about looping and moving through with the loop. We've talked about how to start a sequence or start recording right on the beat, which is super important. We're going to go back up to 1-to-1, show you a little bit more about lifting. Any of these tracks, or all of them, can be lifted and dropped into the synth sampler or drum sampler. So I'm going to lift this drum track here and put it back down. Remember, it's still in memory. I'll go over to here and drop it. Turn off our sequencer. And now we have that loop that we made in here. And you can go ahead and adjust the loop points to your taste. And this is useful because maybe you want to save the idea or chop it up in such a way. Well, now you can. Same thing can be done with the synth. If I go over back to my tape and pick, let's see, what does 1 sound like? We'll grab 2. You can hear a little bit of clipping from the drive. We're going to adjust that. So lift, drop again because I want it to stay there. Then go over here and drop. Let's go ahead and adjust our drive so that we're not clipping. So now that I have dropped this in here, that whole phrase, you know, I can do whatever I want to it. I can reverse it. Go over to the endpoint here. So while I use the OP-1 primarily for beat-driven music, it's got a lot of potential for ambient and other stuff by sampling and sampling and sampling and reversing and putting things in different places and using like the tombola sequencer to mess around with stuff. So that's very, very cool. And that technique can be used to lift the entire thing here. So I could hit Shift up. I've now lifted that entire section of tape. I'm going to press down, and then I'm going to go back over to the drum sampler and press down. And I have the whole loop. So you could make a cool loop, then bring it into the drum thing and chop it up. You can also change the speed while recording. So if I go set this loop here, and I'm going to set my input to my microphone. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Check, check. Yep, yep. Okay, great. I'm recording from the microphone, and now I'm going to change the tape speed, then I'm going to change it back. This should change the way the recording works. I'm recording from the microphone, and now I'm going to change the tape speed, then I'm going to change it back. This should change the way the recording works. So that's cool, I guess. So I'll show you that again with a synth sample that I have. I don't think we still have that on there, so let's go ahead and find a pleasing chord. So If you want to get wonky, that's something you can do. Let's go ahead and show off another interesting thing that you can do. I'm going to record from my input here. So if I hit Shift Record, I'm in record mode, and I can use this blue knob to move the tape head back and forth while recording. So I'm going to record this, and then I'm going to go back a little bit, and then I'm going to record forward, and then I'm going to go back some, and maybe record here, and then I'm going to sing, yeah. Oh. Let's hear what that beautiful thing sounds like. Fancy, right? Do the same thing with this. So let's say you've made something on the tape and you want to save it somehow. So you made took up all 5 minutes and about 30 seconds of tape that's available here, and you're like, well, I'm on a road trip, but I want to make another song. Well, what you can do is back it up to the album. So if you hit COM over here, you have a two-sided album. You can hit side and switch. This is basically a recorder that will record what's coming out of the OP-1, whether it's the tape or literally anything. I can go over here and record this stuff if I want. Hey, I'm recording my voice. And then hit stop. This stuff if I want. Hey, I'm recording my voice. But what I normally use it for is recording the tape. So we're going to go back to stop, and we're going to hit record, and then we're going to go over to here. So I've just recorded that to the album. And this will show up as a file that you will be able to grab off the OP-1 when you mount it as a drive, which I'll show off in another video. That's a way to save your tape recordings onto an album and have 2 5.5-minute songs if you want, or, whatever you want to record of these. Could it be sketches? It could just be random ideas. I don't know, whatever you want. That's there. Album. So that's the OP-1 tape. A very useful and important part of the OP-1 that can do everything from experimental to straight up just 4-track tape recording. You have controls for Master Effects. You have performance controls. You can move around in the tape. You can loop it or not loop it. And using lift, you can either back up what you're about to record over, or you can drop it into a synth or drum sampler slot. And you have mute options as well. I know that was a little out of order. There's a lot to go over with the tape, so hopefully that gave you a taste of what's possible and how it works. My name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.